see his ears. There's a puppy down here. Oh, there he is. Happy Friday. How's it going? Irma says, pop up puppy. Yep. Little groundhog. Oh, now he's laying down over there. What a cute guy. Too bad he's all out of focus. It's the weekend. I'm gonna be running D&D tomorrow. Dungeons and or Dragons. Hi, Sharkies. Speaking of Dungeons and or Dragons, you need to tell me how your game ended. How did that last session go? It's and/or. That means that you might not have to pick. You can pick. Sometimes there's one or the other. Sometimes there's both. We're not going to talk about any times where there may or may not be neither. I'm still a bit sleepy. I haven't quite got back to a regular sleep schedule yet after the 2 to 4 a.m. hospital trip. Sleep's still all out of whack. Oh, camera, what do you think you're even looking at? There's nothing in focus right now. Oh, puppy, you can kind of see his tail right here-ish. There. He's curled up in his little bed there. Just out of view. Sharky's started the final battle, but because of a mix of technical fussing, shenanigans, there's always got to be time for shenanigans, and dinner, we got through the first round of combat. I see. So it was not, in fact, the final session of your game. We usually allocate a good half hour, sometimes a little more, to just people talking at the beginning of a game. You know, give everyone time to chat and get all that out of their system before we get in character and get to it. That was pretty much guaranteed that you'd have to pause. Okay. So, what is the final battle? Who are you battling? What's your setup like? For the kids, your session's going to only be about 3 hours absolute max. I don't know why it goes the way that it does, but for some reason in our groups, we frequently just end up doing 8-hour, sometimes longer than 8-hour sessions. And I know that that's not normal. We also don't do them very frequently, which I think is part of why that ends up happening. Once we finally get together, everyone's so eager that we just spend a whole day at it. You know, and there'll be a meal break in there and time for everyone to go for a walk or something like that. I was worried for a second there that puppy was gonna perk up when I said the W word. But yeah, we frequently will end up, and I expect tomorrow is going to be like that for us. They're battling an archmage, some squishy followers who are a lot squishier than you planned, and a Draco Lich. It's a big combo. Mages, I don't know, mages can be scary, especially if they've had time to prepare and are, clever, which they should be because you've got to be having an intelligence score to be a wizard. There was a system, I don't know if you played 4th edition at all. I wasn't a fan of 4th edition, but they had this one system in 4th edition which I've heard people talk about being like the best thing to come from 4th edition, which was minions. Which basically what it was you could have basically like just hordes of minions that all had 1 hit point. They would go down in 1 hit no matter what. Like, you still had to roll to hit them, get past their AC or whatever. But essentially the point was you could throw in tons of them without worrying about them breaking the balance too badly because they're going to go down easily. But the intent is for them to be, squishy. They're not there to soak up hits just to be numbers to be dealt with, because you do have to still deal with them or else, they're attacking back. And I feel like kind of that way you can kind of balance a little bit on the fly by like, oh, this isn't challenging enough, or the action economy is swinging too far in the player's favor. More minions! I have not attempted to use that mechanic myself, but I've heard about it and I've heard people be quite happy with it. I don't know. The game we're playing is dangerous enough as it is that I worry too much, like worry about things going too far in the other direction and having a total party kill. Oh, sleepy pup. Where last we left our players in my Curse of Strahd game, Armo says pretty much any time we're fighting more than one thing, we're like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. Where we left off is they had escaped that haunted mansion, Durst Manor, that they had been stuck in for a while. And they burned it to the ground. And then they made their way into some little village, kind of in the middle of, I think it was sort of getting towards like dawn. They found a shop that was open and they went in and bought some supplies finally, because they ended up in this land with nothing, just what they were wearing to bed on them, which in some cases was, in one case in particular, was actually nothing. They gathered some stuff while they were in Durst Manor, but they bought some actual traveling supplies and things like that when they made it to this town. And the dangers of sleeping nude, yeah, apparently. And then that's pretty much where we finished our last session, was they had bought, basically spent some time looking in the books and scouring through. The shop they found, I believe, was charging like 10 times book price for anything they wanted to buy. And they did not haggle this guy down successfully. I'm not saying whether or not it was possible to. It may not have been possible to, but when the DM asks you to describe your pajamas, watch out. I had asked them to, describe their going to bed process, just as a sort of, be descriptive. What's it like? Do you have any prayers, things like that? I was trying to be a little subtle about it, but I don't know. Farmo says that one character may now have a complex a la Tobias Funke. Arrested Development. Never nude. We'll have to find him jorts. So that's where we're at. We'll see how tomorrow's session goes. What things are like in this land outside of haunted mansions. So that's going to be pretty much all of tomorrow for us. And then Sunday, we've had this this car sitting in our garage for a few years that we haven't been using. We just haven't needed to have two cars insured, so we've just had it sitting in our garage. And so I'm gonna, on Sunday, my brother's gonna come over and get that running, you know, jump start the battery and put some what's the fuel catalyst type stuff in the tank so that to refresh the fuel. And because he's kind of sponsoring, I guess, I don't know how else to put it really, a Ukrainian refugee right now. So he's helped get this guy a job, and we're gonna insure the car under my brother's name, and he's gonna lend it to this guy for a bit. As you know, getting the guy on his feet, kind of thing. So that's gonna be our well, at least part of Sunday. I'm hoping also just to sort of rest a bit on Sunday. And then on the next week, we're going to be spending a lot of time out in Chilliwack. I don't know if that's going to impact this. It probably will, actually. Next Wednesday will probably be fine. I'll probably be able to do next Wednesday's stream. But next Friday, I may not be able to. Because we'll be out in Chilliwack, I think, for Easter, yeah. I don't know why I didn't even think of that until now. It almost worked out that Wednesday wouldn't have even worked, now that I'm thinking about it, but we've just rearranged plans tonight, so we will probably be home for Wednesday, so I should be able to do next Wednesday, but probably not next Friday. Yeah, so it's going to be a busy week or so, over a week starting from basically tomorrow. Do the Sharkies have any plans for this weekend? Are you going to run the next session of your game, or is that going to be put off for a little bit? Yeah, honestly, this whole month, this month and next month are all going to be very busy. There may end up being a few times where I have to skip streams. I'll try to figure that all out ahead of time. Assuming that everything works out and we are able to travel, we'll be gone for 3 weeks in May, from like May 11th to Japan. I don't think I'll be able to do the book stream from Japan. If it somehow worked out that I could, that would be pretty great. Get some of the Japanese scenery in the background or something, but I'm not counting on that working out. Sharkies are working on Saturday and crashing on Sunday. Feels like things have been really fast-paced lately. Yeah, it feels like there's a lot going on with me too. Farmos's dad is directing Calendar Girls, and her mom's actually in a play that they're doing for the Arts Festival in Langley called Marjorie Prime. Yeah, it was something like that. So yeah, let's see. Next Friday, I definitely can't do the stream. The week after that is probably fine for me. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to take a good look at my schedule and let everybody know what days are not going to happen. Farmos is almost done this semester of school, just exams now. All done classes. One year exams on a Saturday, that's... weekend exams are just wrong. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. Book! Look at how far we are. Look at how little of this book is left. That's the back of the book right there. And that's how close we are to it. We've almost reached that back cover. We're on page 291 out of 322. We finished chapters 26 and 27 on Wednesday, but chapter 26 was very short. Garion got kidnapped again. Pharma says next week we might need to pick a book. Oh, actually, yeah, that might work out. Maybe if we finish this book on next Wednesday, then Friday can be just sort of a break in between books. Who wants to do a count of how many times Garion's been kidnapped? It's been a few at this point. I don't think I could keep track of them all. Yeah. So Garion got kidnapped by the Niasans, taken to Salmissra's palace. So accidentally kicked the camera there, whoops. And there he got drugged up and taken, questioned as to who he is, which resulted in him. It seemed like he was doing pretty well at first. He had the whole lie about being, the son of a farmer who got shipped off to sea to be a sailor because it was going to be a better job than being a farmer. And Greldick said he had a talent for it because he was good at climbing the ropes. It all seemed like it was going really well, and then it all fell apart, and he ended up spilling every single secret that the mighty and powerful had let him eavesdrop on from one end of the world to the other. Faro says, where she was a pervy queen, taking him as her consort when he's only 15. Yeah. And killing the previous one who tried to stab Garion. Oh, boy. Yep. And we had talking snakes. Well, a talking snake. And we had a little tiny green poisonous snake that killed Essia, the previous consort. Herma says not the nicest royal court he's been to. Sharky say the way they did that truth serum bit was very interesting. How it made him blurt out so much till he started making sense. Yeah, how he just was like, just kind of felt the need to keep talking. Making his lie more and more elaborate, but until he got tripped up with the, like, who did you say you were again? Last Aristide, and I was like, it's one of those annual, everybody's birthday is on the same day. Nope, immediately shot down. No, it's just he was born on Aristide, apparently. Ugh. He doesn't feel any luckier than anyone else. Norma says it's like me when I've had too much alcohol, so I'm very chatty. Say it seems like most other examples have characters immediately tell the truth with some strain. Yeah, honestly, now I can't think of really any examples that aren't like magic off the top of my head. Truth serum. It's an interesting concept. Yeah, this one definitely just seemed to be kind of, I don't know, making him feel like he just had to keep talking until, and also like making him dizzy enough and foggy enough, brain foggy enough that he forgot that he was supposed to be lying. Yeah, so we're on chapter 28. Pharma says the classic James Bond style truth serum is very, like, compelling of truth rather than just making you talk a bunch. All right, I think I'm gonna get into it, huh? It's over 20 past. So we are on chapter 28 out of how many chapters are there, I wonder? Out of 30. We're on 28 out of 30. So yeah, if we read one chapter tonight, because I don't think we're going to finish the book tonight. If we read one tonight, that'll leave one left for next Wednesday. And then we'll be done this book, and we'll have to decide what we're going to read next. If we're going to keep on going straight on to what's next? This is the Queen of Sorcery, so what, Magician's Gambit maybe? Or yeah, Magician's Gambit is next. We're going to go straight into Magician's Gambit or take a break with a different book. Think about it. Think about what you want to do. We'll see how this book ends, right? That might influence things. All right. Chapter 28. There were other things they made him drink. Good start. Some bitter, some sickeningly sweet, and his mind seemed to sink deeper with each cup he raised to his lips. His eyes began to play strange tricks on him. It seemed, somehow, that the world had suddenly been drowned, and that all of this was taking place underwater. The walls wavered, and the figures of the kneeling eunuchs seemed to sway and undulate like seaweed in the endless wash and eddy of tide and current. The lamps sparkled like jewels, casting out brilliant colors in slow-falling showers. Garion slumped, all bemused, on the dais near Salmissra's divan. I'm sorry. His eyes filled with light, and his head washed clean of all thought. Oof. There was no sense of time, no desire, no will. He briefly and rather vaguely remembered his friends, but the knowledge that he would never see them again brought only a brief, passing regret, a temporary melancholy that was rather pleasant. I don't know if this qualifies for the teen angst button. I don't think it does. He even shed one crystal tear over his loss, but the tear landed on his wrist and sparkled with such an unearthly beauty that he lost himself utterly in contemplating it. How did he do it? The Queen's voice said somewhere behind him. Her voice was so beautifully musical that the sound of it pierced Garion's very soul. Sharky say pink elephants on parade. Davoon. It has power, Moss replied, his serpent voice thrilling Garion's nerves, vibrating them like the strings of a lute. Its power is untried, undirected, but it is very strong. Beware of this one, beloved Salmissra. It can destroy quite by accident. I will control him, she said. Perhaps, the snake replied. Sorcery requires will, Salmissra pointed out. I will take his will away from him. Your blood is cold, Maz, and you've never felt the fire that fills the veins with the taste of Oret or Athal or Chaldis. Your passions are also cold, and you can't know how much the body can be used to enslave the will. I'll put his mind to sleep and then smother his will with love. Love, Salmissra? The snake asked, sounding faintly amused. The term serves as well as any other, she replied. Call it appetite, if you wish. That I can understand, Moss agreed. But don't underestimate this one, or overestimate your own power. It does not have an ordinary mind. There's something strange about it that I can't quite penetrate. We'll see, she said. Sadi, she called the eunuch. Yes, my queen? Take the boy. Have him bathed and perfumed. He smells of boats and tar and salt water. I don't like such alorn smells. At once, eternal Salmissra. Pharmo says heffalumps and woozles. Garion was led away to a place where there was warm water. His clothes were taken from him, and he was immersed and soaped and immersed again. Fragrant oils were rubbed into his skin, and a brief loincloth was typo in my copy, it says was ties about his waist. A brief loincloth was tied about his waist. Then he was taken quite firmly by the chin, and rouge was applied to his cheeks. It was during this process that he realized that the person painting his face was a woman. Slowly, almost incuriously, he let his eyes move around the bath chamber. He realized then that except for Sadi, everyone there was female. It seemed that something about that should bother him, something having to do with appearing naked in the presence of women, but he could not exactly remember what it was. Sharkies wonder what that snake is, really, that it can perceive and peer into Garion's mind so much. Definitely more than just a large talking snake. It's a good question. When the woman had finished painting his face, Sadi, the eunuch, took his arm and led him again through the dim, endless corridors, back to the room where Salmissra half lay on her divan beneath the statue. Why does this word have to plague me so? admiring herself in the pedestaled mirror beside her. "Much better," she said, looking Garion up and down with a certain appreciation. "He's much more muscular than I thought. Bring him here." Sadi led Garion to the side of the queen's divan and gently pressed him down onto the cushions where Essia had lounged. Salmissra reached out with a lingeringly slow hand and brushed her cold fingertips across his face and chest. Her pale eyes seemed to burn, and her lips parted slightly. Garion's eyes fixed themselves on her pale arm. There was no trace of hair on that white skin. "Smooth," he said vaguely, struggling to focus on that peculiarity. "Of course, my Belgarion," she murmured. "Serpents are hairless, and I am the queen of the serpents." Slowly, puzzled, he raised his eyes to the lustrous black tresses tumbling down across one of her white shoulders. "Only this?" she said, touching the curls with a sensuous kind of vanity. "How?" he asked. "It's a secret," she laughed. "Someday, perhaps, I'll show you. Would you like that?" "I suppose so." "Tell me, Belgarion," she said, "do you think I'm beautiful?" "I think so." "How old would you say I am?" She spread her arms so that he could see her body through the filmy gauze of her gown. "I don't know," Garion said. "Older than I am, but not too old." A brief flicker of annoyance crossed her face. "Guess," she ordered somewhat harshly. 30, perhaps," he decided, confused. 30? Her voice was stricken. Don't take it personally, everyone. Sharky say even drugged up and uninhibited, Garion is still awkward. 30? Her voice was stricken. Swiftly, she turned to her mirror and examined her face minutely. "You're blind, you idiot!" she snapped, still staring at herself in the glass. "That's not the face of a woman of 30. 23, 25 at the most." "Whatever you say," he agreed. 23, she stated firmly. "Not a single day over 23. "Of course," he said mildly. "Would you believe that I'm nearly 60? She demanded, her eyes suddenly flint-hard. "No," Garion denied. "I couldn't believe that. Not 60. "What a charming boy you are, Belgarion," she breathed at him, her glance melting. Her fingers returned to his face, touching, stroking, caressing. Slowly, beneath the pale skin of her naked shoulder and throat, curious patches of color began to appear, a faint mottling of green and purple that seemed to shift and pulsate, growing first quite visible and then fading. Her lips parted again, and her breathing grew faster. The mottling spread down her torso beneath her transparent gown, the colors seeming to writhe beneath her skin. Maz crept nearer, his dead eyes suddenly coming awake with a strange adoration. The vivid pattern of his own scaly skin so nearly matched the colors that began to emerge upon the body of the Serpent Queen that when he draped a caressing coil across one of her shoulders, it became impossible to say exactly where lay the boundary between the snake and the woman. Had Garion not been in a half-stupor, he would have recoiled from the queen. Her colorless eyes and mottled skin seemed reptilian, and her openly lustful expression spoke of some dreadful hunger. Yet there was a curious attraction about her. Helplessly, he felt drawn by her blatant sensuality. "Come closer, my Belgarian," she ordered softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her eyes gloated over her possession of him. Not far from the dais, Sadi the eunuch cleared his throat. "Divine Queen," he announced, "the emissary of Tar Urgas requests a word with you." "Of Ktuchik, you mean," Salmissra said, looking faintly annoyed. Then a thought seemed to cross her mind, and she smiled maliciously. The mottling of her skin faded. "Bring the Grolim in," she instructed Sadi. Sadi bowed and withdrew, to return a moment later with a scar-faced man in the garb of a Murgo. "Give welcome to the emissary of Tor Urgas," the eunuch chanted. "Welcome," the chorus replied. "Carefully now," the dry voice in his mind said to Garion. "That's the one we saw at the harbor." Garion looked more carefully at the Murgo and realized that it was true. "Hail, eternal Salmissra," the Grolim said perfunctorily, bowing first to the queen and then to the statue behind her. "Tar Urgas, king of Kthol Murgos, sends greetings to the spirit of Issa and to his handmaiden." Books and Brews and Booze says it's a books raid. Raiding with a party of 9. Hey, everybody. We're reading a book. We're reading Queen of Sorcery. How's it going? We're actually pretty close to the end, so I apologize if you're worried about spoilers on the story. It's the second book out of a series of 5 that's followed by another series of 5. The Sharkies picture Vikings coming a raiding, but with book shields. Books, Brews, and Booze says, "Hello, friends. I've been lurking on your stream for far too long, and I'm finally verbally joining the party." Hi. It's entertaining to see another book-related Twitch channel. Pharma says, "Welcome." Have you been... What do you guys do? Are you also reading on your stream? Behind the Cannon says, "I'm going to lurk as I go spend some time with the tiny one." All right, well, welcome. Book says, "It's possible someone forgot to make a sub-raid call. Can't imagine who." Yeah. This is our 4th book we've read on this stream. We started with The Hobbit because, of course we started with The Hobbit. And now I'm all out of focus. And then we read some Terry Pratchett, Guards. And then we read Pawn of Prophecy, which is the book that came before this one. And now we're reading Queen of Sorcery. And this scene here on the cover with the lady on the throne and the boy in the loincloth is where we're at right now. Patio Puzzles says, "I'm going to listen. I have a good reading voice, so thank you." You stream about books, brews, and booze. Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense. With all these people here, I feel like I need to summon the puppy so you can all say hi to him. There he is. This is Binabik, which is short for Bin Binnakegabinik. You want a treat? He was napping in his bed over there. The Haunted Castle. star of the stream. Hey, puppy. And away he goes back over to the corner there. Ben, Patio Puzzle says hi. Says hi, puppy. Can you waggle your tail? Can you waggle your tail? Can you? Are you nervous? He looks so concerned. He's got built-in makeup. Alright. Well, I'm gonna get back to, we're just in the Queen of Nyissa, Eternal Salmissra is her name, is having a meeting with an emissary from a different kingdom. And she has our protagonist, Garion, held captive at the moment, and he's all drugged up. She's a little creepy. Books, Brews, and Booze says, we were talking about sci-fi, Frankenstein, Halloween costumes, classic novels, choose your own adventure books, and why they hate me but love the haunted castle. I see. That's a wide-ranging series of topics. Frankenstein is Mary Shelley, right? I think that's frequently considered to be kind of the first sort of science fiction novel. I saw this thing recently that was the ending of the last page of Frankenstein, and then saying she was 18 when she wrote it. Wow. Frankenstein kind of drifting away, or Frankenstein's monster drifting away on like a raft or something, and then his voice echoes out and someone had written it in pen, also, by the way, I don't mind if you just call me Frankenstein and not Frankenstein's monster. It doesn't really bother me. Oh, he wandered off. I'm sorry. The puppy wandered away. Farmo says that she wrote it over like a weekend or something. Sharkies say there's a bit of a commonality with Frankenstein, as Garion likes to think of himself as a Byronic hero, but only succeeds at being 15. Yeah, we've kind of got an ongoing joke of having a teen angst button. Every time Garion's having teen angst, we hit the button, Alright, I'm going to keep going with this meeting here. This diplomatic meeting. Tar Urgas, king of Cthulmurgos, sends greetings to the spirit of Issa and to his handmaiden. And are there no greetings from Cthulchik, high priest of the Grolims? She asked, her eyes bright. Of course, the Grolim said, but those are customarily given in private. Is your errand here on behalf of Tar Urgas or of Cthulchik? She inquired, turning to examine her reflection in the mirror. Tar Urgas is the king of this kingdom, and Cthulchik is kind of the head of this sort of evil church that's kind of got his own political power going on. She inquired, turning to examine her reflection in the mirror. May we speak in private, Your Highness? The Grolim asked. We are in private, she said. But, he looked around at the kneeling eunuchs in the room. My body servants, she said. A Nyissan queen is never left alone. You should know that by now. And that one? The Grolim pointed at Garion. He is also a servant, but of a slightly different kind. The Grolim shrugged. Whatever you wish. I salute you in the name of Cthulchik, high priest of the Grolims and disciple of Torak. Torak is a god. The handmaiden of Issa salutes Ktuchik of Rak-Kthol. Issa is also a god. She responded formally. What does the Grolim High Priest want of me? The boy, your highness, the Grolim said bluntly. Which boy is that? The boy you stole from Polgara, and who now sits at your feet. She laughed scornfully. Convey my regrets to Ktuchik, she said, but that would be impossible. It's unwise to deny the wishes of Ktuchik, the Grolim warned. It's even more unwise to make demands of Salmissra in her own palace, she said. What is Ktuchik prepared to offer for this boy? His eternal friendship. What need has the Serpent Queen of friends? Gold, then, the Grolim offered with annoyance. I know the secret of the red gold of Angarak, she told him. I don't wish to become a slave to it. Keep your gold, Grolim. Might I say that the game you play is very dangerous, your highness, the Grolim said coolly. You've already made Polgara your enemy. Can you afford the enmity of Ktuchik as well? I'm not afraid of Polgara, she answered, nor of Ktuchik. The queen's bravery is remarkable, he said dryly. This is beginning to get tiresome. My terms are very simple. Tell Ktuchik that I have Torak's enemy, and I will keep him. Unless, she paused. Unless what, your highness? If Ktuchik will speak to Torak for me, an agreement might be reached. What sort of agreement? I will give the boy to Torak as a wedding gift. The Grolim blinked. If Torak will make me his bride and give me immortality, I will deliver Belgarion up to him. Oh, hey, Mini Cake's here. Hey, it's been a little while. We're getting close to the end of this book. Welcome back. How's Cooper doing? Sharky say Garion once again overhearing something. Bingo. To be fair, everybody knows he's here and listening for this one. But yes, it's another one of those, like, he doesn't want to be there. He's being forced to listen to this conversation, which I feel like is a separate box from Garion eavesdropping on something. Because there's, like, Garion eavesdrops on something where people don't know he's listening, and then there's Garion doesn't want to listen to this conversation, but he's kind of being forced to. Mini Cakes is taking Cooper for a big walk tomorrow, since you're off tomorrow. That's nice. Farmo says, I mean, he's still accidentally hearing something. It's not accidental, though. Everybody's aware that he's there and listening. I mean, he's drugged up, but... Anyways. Did you miss a lot? Our hero, Garion, has been captured by the Nissen queen, Salmissra. He's drugged up and not wearing much other than like a loincloth and oils. And he's kind of currently being offered up to Torak as a wedding gift. Yeah. So he's not in a great place right now. He's been given a lot of Nissen drugs. Farmo says Binibik is going to need a big walk tomorrow too. Yeah. Alright. If Torak will make me his bride and give me immortality, I will deliver Belgarion up to him. Oh, also, I don't know if the last time you were here was before this happened, but Garion, now Belgarion, did some magic and kind of burned a man to death. An evil man. Ashrak slash Chamdar, his mortal enemy. Um, yeah. Yeah, and also teleported a dying slave. He did that too. But so he's kind of been torn up with himself since he did that. He's not impressed with his own actions. All right. All the world knows that the dragon god of Angarak is bound in slumber, the Grolem objected. But he will not sleep forever, Salmissra said flatly. The priests of Angarak and the sorcerers of Aloria always seem to forget that eternal Salmissra can read the signs in the heavens as clearly as they. The day of Torak's awakening is at hand. Tell Ktuchik that upon the day that I am wed to Torak, Belgarion will be in his hands. Until that day, the boy is mine. I shall deliver your message to Ktuchik, the Grolem said with a stiff, icy bow. Leave, then, she told him with an airy wave of her hand. So that's it, the voice in Garion's mind said as the Grolem left. I should have known, I suppose. Maz, the serpent, suddenly raised his head, his great neck flaring and his eyes burning. Beware, he hissed. Of the Grolem, Salmissra laughed. I have nothing to fear from him. Not the Grolem, Maz said. That one. He flickered his tongue at Garion. Its mind is awake. That's impossible, she objected. Nevertheless, its mind is awake. It has to do, I think, with that metal thing around its neck. Oh, Garion still got his necklace on, huh? Remove the ornament, then, she told the snake. Maz lowered his length to the floor and slid around the divan toward Garion. Remain very still, Garion's inner voice told him. Don't try to fight. Numbly, Garion watched the blunt head draw closer. Maz raised his head, his hood flaring. His nervous tongue darted. Slowly, he leaned forward. His nose touched the silver amulet hanging about Garion's neck. There was a bright blue spark as the reptile's head came in contact with the amulet. Garion felt the familiar surge, but tightly controlled now, focused down to a single point. Maz recoiled, and the spark from the amulet leaped out, sizzling through the air, linking the silver disc to the reptile's nose. The snake's eyes began to shrivel, and steam poured from his nostrils and his gaping mouth. Then the spark was gone, and the body of the dead snake writhed and twisted convulsively on the polished stone of the chamber. Maz! Salmissra shrieked. The eunuchs scrambled out of the way of the wildly threshing body of the snake. My queen! A shaved-headed functionary gibbered from the door. The world is ending! What? Salmissra tore her eyes from the convulsions of the snake. The sun has gone out! Noon is as dark as midnight! The city is gone mad with terror! And that is the end of chapter 28. What did I miscount? There's actually 2 more chapters left. 29 and 30. The sun has gone out, everyone. Maz got zapped to death, and the sun has gone out. Pharma says, sounds like you shouldn't have done that, Snaky. Oh, I've gone blurry. I'm all out of focus. That's fine. Ah, boy. Did I miss much else in the chat? It's not even 8 o'clock my time yet. I'm on Pacific time, so I feel like we should probably get into chapter 29, huh? This is too exciting to stop here. It's Friday night. Let's read one more chapter. It's not too long. We'll leave chapter 30 for next Wednesday, and then we'll probably read that and then decide what we're going to read next, if we're going to go straight into the next book, or take a detour off into another book for a little while and then come back later. Minicake says, Karma hit the snake with no mercy. Yeah, apparently you don't touch Garion's amulet without permission. Especially if you mean him harm. So I think we should get right into chapter 29. Everybody ready? Let's find out why the world is ending all of a sudden. Okay. Chapter 29. We're on page 298 out of 322. In the... Is it tumult? Tumult? Yeah, it's tumult, right? T-U-M-U-L-T. And the tumult which followed? Pharma says, sounds right. Patio Puzzles is ready. All right. In the tumult which followed that announcement, Garion sat quietly on the cushions beside Salmissra's throne. The quiet voice in his mind, however, was speaking to him rapidly. Stay very still, the voice told him. Don't say anything and don't do anything. Get my astronomers here immediately, Salmissra ordered. I want to know why I wasn't warned about this eclipse. It's not an eclipse, my queen, the bald functionary wailed, groveling on the polished floor not far from the still writhing Maz. The dark came like a great curtain. It was like a moving wall. No wind, no rain, no thunder. It swallowed the sun without a sound. He began to sob brokenly. We shall never see the sun again. Stop that, you idiot, Salmissra snapped. Get on your feet. Sadi, take this babbling fool out of here and go look at the sky. Then come back to me here. I have to know what's going on. Sharky say, the sky is falling. Pharma says, everybody panic. Yeah, if you push, it'll make things better. Sadi shook himself, almost like a dog coming out of the water, and pulled his fascinated eyes off the dead, fixed grin on the face of Maz. Riot. Chat's full of emojis. He pulled the blubbering functionary to his feet and led him out of the chamber. Salmissra then turned on Garion. How did you do that? She demanded, pointing at the twitching form of Maz. I don't know, he said. His mind was still sunk in fog. Only the quiet corner where the voice lived was alert. Take off that amulet, she commanded. Obediently, Garion reached his hands toward the medallion. Suddenly, his hands froze. They would not move. He let them fall. I can't, he said. Take it from him, she ordered one of the eunuchs. The man glanced at once at the dead snake, then stared at Garion. He shook his head and backed away in fright. Look at this, everyone. We've got a random minion with common sense. With a sense of self-preservation. That's rare. Minicake says, did she learn nothing? She just doesn't care about her minions, apparently. Sharky say, the eunuch is every Vancouverite in late winter. We shall never see the sun again. I'm glad it's spring now. I'm glad it's spring. Do as I say, the Snake Queen ordered sharply. From somewhere in the palace came a hollow, reverberating crash. There was the sound of nails screeching out of heavy wood and the avalanche noise of a wall collapsing. Then, a long way down one of the dim corridors, someone screamed in agony. The dry consciousness in his mind reached out, probing. At last, it said with obvious relief. What's going on out there? Salmissra blazed. Come with me, the voice in Garion's mind said. I need your help. Garion put his hands under him and started to push himself up. No, this way. A strange image of separation rose in Garion's mind. Unthinking, he willed the separation and felt himself rising, and yet not moving. Suddenly, he had no sense of his body, no arms or legs, yet he seemed to move. He saw himself, his own body, sitting stupidly on the cushions at Salmissra's feet. Well, we got some astral projection going on, everybody. Everyone seen Doctor Strange? Or played D&D? Farmo says astral projection, yeah. Hurry, the voice said to him. It was no longer inside his mind, but seemed to be somewhere beside him. A dim shape was there, formless, but somehow very familiar. This voice is getting more and more separate from Garion. This is finally the first sort of literal sense of that. The fog that had clouded Garion's wits was gone, and he felt very alert. Who are you? He demanded of the shape beside him. There isn't time to explain. Quickly, we have to lead them back before Salmissra has time to do anything. Lead who? Polgara and Barak. Aunt Pol? Where is she? Come, the voice said urgently. Together, Garion and the strange presence at his side seemed to waft toward the closed door. They passed through it as if it were no more than insubstantial mist, and emerged in the corridor outside. Then they were flying, soaring down the corridor with no sense of air rushing past, or even of movement. A moment later, they came out into that vast open hall where Isis had first brought Garion when they had entered the palace. There they stopped, hovering in the air. Aunt Pol, her splendid eyes ablaze and a fiery nimbus about her, strode through the hall. Beside her hulked the great, shaggy bear Garion had seen before. Barak's face seemed vaguely within that bestial head, but there was no humanity in it. The beast's eyes were afire with raging madness, and its mouth gaped horribly. Desperate guards tried to push the bear back with long pikes, but the beast swiped the pikes away and fell upon the guards. Its vast embrace crushed them, and its flailing claws ripped them open. The trail behind Aunt Pol and the bear was littered with maimed bodies and quivering chunks of flesh. The snakes, which had lain in the corners, were seething across the floor, but as they came into contact with the flaming light which surrounded Aunt Pole, they died even as Moss had died. Methodically, Aunt Pole was blasting down doors with word and gesture. A thick wall barred her way, and she brushed it into rubble as if it had been made of cobwebs. Barak raged through the dim hall, roaring insanely, destroying everything in his path. A shrieking eunuch tried desperately to climb one of the pillars. The great beast reared up and hooked its claws into the man's back and pulled him down. The shrieks ended abruptly in a spurt of brains and blood when the massive jaws closed with a sickening crunch on the eunuch's head. Well, that's grim. "Polgara!" The presence beside Garion shouted soundlessly. "This way!" Aunt Pole turned quickly. "Follow us," the presence said. "Hurry!" Then Garion and that other part of himself were flying back down the corridor toward Salmissra and the semi-conscious body that they had recently vacated. Behind them came Aunt Pole and the ravening Barak. Garion and his strange companion passed again through the heavy closed door. Salmissra, her naked body mottled now with rage rather than lust beneath her transparent gown, stood over the vacant-eyed form on the cushions. "Answer me!" she was shouting. "Answer me!" "When we get back," the shapeless presence said, "let me handle things. We have to buy some time." And then they were back. Garion felt his body shudder briefly, and he was looking out through his own eyes again. The fog, which had benumbed him before, came rushing back. "What?" his lips said, though he had not consciously formed the word. "I said, is this your doing?" Salmissra demanded. "Is what my doing?" The voice coming from his lips sounded like his, but there was a subtle difference. "All of it," she said. "The darkness, the attack on my palace." "I don't think so. How could I? I'm only a boy." "Don't lie to me, Belgarion," she demanded. "I know who you are. I know what you are. It has to be you. Belgarath himself could not blot out the sun. I warn you, Belgarion, what you have drunk today is death. Even now, the poison in your veins is killing you. Why did you do that to me? To keep you. You must have more, or you will die. You must drink only what I can give you, and you must drink every day of your life. You're mine, Belgarion, mine!" Anyone here read Dune? I feel like there's a certain, it wasn't really in the film that just came out, but there was something very similar in the book. Oh, and Pharma says Dune style, yeah. Despairing shrieks came from just outside the door. The Serpent Queen looked up, startled. Then she turned to the huge statue behind her, bowing down in a strange ceremonial way, and began to weave her hands through the air in a series of intricate gestures. She started to pronounce an involved formula in a language Garion had never heard before, a language filled with guttural hissings and strange cadences. Pharma says the evil dudes. had something like that. The we had House Atreides and the Baron of, I can't remember the name off the top of my head. Drawing a blank. Trying to switch. Harkonnen. Harkonnen. Yeah. It's not spelled exactly like that, but it's close. Yeah. Also, I like that bit earlier. How could I? I'm only a boy. Just not even Garion saying it. The heavy door exploded inward, blasted into splinters, and Aunt Pole stood in the shattered doorway, her white lock ablaze and her eyes dreadful. The great bear at her side roared, his teeth dripping blood and with tatters of flesh still hanging from his claws. I've warned you, Salmissra, Aunt Pole spoke in a deadly voice. Stop where you are, Polgara, the queen ordered. She did not turn around, and her fingers continued their sinuous weaving in the air. The boy is dying, she said. Nothing can save him if you attack me. Aunt Pole stopped. What have you done? She demanded. Look at him, Salmissra said. He has drunk Athal and Caldis. Even now their fire is in his veins. He will need more very soon. Her hands still moved in the air, and her face was fixed in extreme concentration. Her lips began moving again in that guttural hissing. Is it true? Aunt Pole's voice echoed in Garion's mind. It seems to be, the dry voice replied. They made him drink things, and he seems different now. Aunt Pole's eyes widened. Who are you? I've always been here, Polgara. Didn't you know that? Did Garion know? He knows that I'm here. He doesn't know what it means. We can talk about that later, she decided. Watch very closely. This is what you have to do. A confused blur of images welled up in Garion's mind. Do you understand? Of course. I'll show him how. Can't you do it? No, Polgara, the dry voice said. The power is his, not mine. Don't worry. He and I understand each other. Garion felt strangely alone as the two voices spoke together in his mind. Garion, the dry voice spoke quietly, I want you to think about your blood. My blood? We're going to change it for a moment. Why? To burn away the poison they gave you. Now concentrate on your blood. Garion did. You want it to be like this. An image of yellow came into Garion's mind. Do you understand? Yes? Do it then. Now. Garion put his fingertips to his chest and willed his blood to change. He suddenly felt as if he were on fire. His heart began to pound, and a heavy sweat burst out all over his body. A moment longer, the voice said. Garion was dying. His altered blood seared through his veins, and he began to tremble violently. His heart hammered in his chest like a tripping sledge. His eyes went dark, and he began to topple slowly forward. Now, the voice demanded sharply, change it back. Then it was over. Garion's heart stuttered, and then faltered back to its normal pace. He was exhausted, but the fog in his brain was gone. It's done, Polgara, the other Garion said. You can do what needs doing now. Aunt Pole had watched anxiously, but now her face became dreadfully stern. She walked across the polished floor toward the dais. "Salmissra," she said, "turn around and look at me." The queen's hands were raised above her head now, and the hissing words tumbled from her lips, rising finally to a hoarse shout. Then, far above them, in the shadows near the ceiling, the eyes of the huge statue opened and began to glow a deep emerald fire. A polished jewel on Salmissra's crown began also to burn with the same glow. The Sharkies are saying, "How does one concentrate on one's own blood?" And Farmo says, "I'm sure if we had magic and a magic voice in our heads, we'd understand. If you can literally leave your body at will, probably makes it easier to look at your blood." Minicake agrees. The statue moved. The sound it made was a kind of ponderous creaking, deafeningly loud. The solid rock from which the huge shape had been hewn bent and flexed as the statue took a step forward, and then another. Book says, "What could possibly go wrong?" Let's find out.
"Why did you summon me?"
An enormous voice demanded through stiff, stony lips. The voice reverberated hollowly up from the massive chest. "Defend thy handmaiden, great Issa!" Salmissra cried, turning to look triumphantly at Aunt Pole. "This evil sorceress hath invaded thy domain to slay me. Her wicked power is so great that none may withstand her. I am thy promised bride, and I place myself under thy protection."
"Who is this who defiles my temple?"
the statue demanded in a vast roar.
"Who dares to raise her hand against my chosen and beloved?"
The emerald eyes flashed in dreadful wrath. Aunt Pole stood alone in the center of the polished floor, with the vast statue looming above her. Her face was unafraid. "You go too far, Salmissra," she said. "This is forbidden." The Serpent Queen laughed scornfully. "Forbidden? What does your forbidding mean to me? Flee now, or face the wrath of divine Issa. Contend, if you will, with a god." "If I must," Aunt Pole said. Wow. Aunt Pole just like, okay. Sharky say, "Interesting. Salmissra has just been bartering to be Torak's wife, and now appeals to being Issa's wife. That is interesting, isn't it?" Also, Farmhouse saying the same thing. Books, Brews, and Booze saying, "Cue the music." Yeah, this would be time for some very orchestral music, I think. "If I must," Aunt Pole said. She straightened then and spoke a single word. The roaring in Garion's mind at that word was overwhelming. Everybody ready in the chat? Then, suddenly, she began to grow. Foot by foot, she towered up, rising like a tree, expanding, growing gigantic before Garion's stunned eyes. Within a moment, she faced the great stone god as an equal.
Polgara?
The god's voice sounded puzzled.
Why have you done this?
I come in fulfillment of the prophecy, Lord Issa, she said. Thy handmaiden hath betrayed thee and thy brothers.
It cannot be so,
Issa said.
She is my chosen one. Her face is the face of my beloved.
The face is the same, Aunt Pole said, but this is not the Salmissra beloved of Issa. 100 Salmissras have served thee in this temple since thy beloved died.
Died?
The god said incredulously. She lies, Salmissra shrieked. I am thy beloved, O my lord. Let not her lies turn thee from me. Kill her. The prophecy approaches its day, Aunt Pole said. The boy at Salmissra's feet is its fruit. He must be returned to me, or the prophecy will fail.
Is the day of the prophecy come so soon?
The god asked. It is not soon, Lord Issa, Aunt Pole said. It is late. Thy slumber hath encompassed eons. Lies! All lies! Salmissra cried desperately, clinging to the ankle of the huge stone god. Sharky sang,
Polgara, is that you? I haven't seen you since Dave's party in November. How are the kids?
Yeah, similar energy.
I must test out the truth of this,
The god said slowly.
I have slept long and deeply, and now the world comes upon me unaware.
Destroy her, O my lord, Salmissra demanded. Her lies are an abomination and a desecration of thy holy presence.
I will find the truth, Salmissra,
Issa said. Garion felt a brief, enormous touch upon his mind. Something had brushed him. Something so vast that his imagination shuddered back from its immensity. Then the touch moved on. Ah! The sigh came from the floor. The dead snake, Maz, stirred. Ah! Let me sleep, it hissed.
In but a moment,
Issa said.
What was your name?
I'm sorry for saying it like that.
What was your favorite color?
No, that part wasn't in there. Mini Cake saying, who does she think she's fooling? I like how mostly everybody's just ignoring Salmissra at this point.
What was your name?
I was called Mas, the snake said. I was counselor and companion to eternal Salmissra. Send me back, Lord. I cannot bear to live again.
Is this my beloved Salmissra?
The god asked. Her successor, Mas sighed. Thy beloved priestess died thousands of years ago. Each new Salmissra is chosen because of her resemblance to thy beloved.
Ah,
Issa said with pain in his huge voice.
And what was this woman's purpose in removing Belgarion from Polgara's care?
She sought alliance with Torak,
Maz said.
She thought to trade Belgarion to the Accursed One in exchange for the immortality his embrace would bestow upon her.
And there's the other shoe, as the Sharkies were saying. Farmo says, Maz dropping the truth bombs. Yep.
His embrace? My priestess would submit to the foul embrace of my mad brother?
Willingly, Lord,
Maz said.
It is her nature to seek the embrace of any man or god or beast who passes.
Oof. Ooh. That's rough right there. Oh boy. Farmo says, wow. Yeah. A look of repugnance flickered across Issa's stony face. When even the god is disgusted with you.
Has it always been so?
He asked.
Always, Lord,
Maz said.
The potion which maintains her youth and semblance to thy beloved sets her veins afire with lust. That fire remains unquenched until she dies. Let me go, Lord, the pain.
Sleep, Maz,
Issa granted sorrowfully.
Take my thanks with you down into silent death.
Maz sighed again, sighed and sank down again.
I too will return to slumber,
Issa said.
I must not remain, lest my presence rouse Torak to that war which would unmake the world.
The great statue stepped back to the spot where it had stood for thousands of years. The deafening creak and groan of flexing rock again filled the huge chamber.
Deal with this woman as it pleases thee, Polgara,
the stone god said.
Only spare her life, out of remembrance of my beloved.
I will, Lord Issa, Aunt Pole said, bowing to the statue.
And carry my love to my brother, Aldur,
the hollow voice said, fading even as it spoke. Sleep, Lord, Aunt Pole said. May thy slumber wash away thy grief. No! Salmissra wailed, but the green fire had already died in the statue's eyes, and the jewel on her crown flickered and went dark. It's time, Salmissra, Aunt Pole, vast and terrible, announced. Don't kill me, Polgara, the queen begged, falling to her knees. Please don't kill me. I'm not going to kill you, Salmissra, Aunt Pole told her. I promised Lord Issa that I would spare your life.
I didn't make any such promise,
Barak said from the doorway. Garion looked sharply at his huge friend, dwarfed now by Aunt Pole's immensity. The bear was gone, and in its place the big Cherek stood, sword in hand. No, Barak, I'm going to solve the problem of Salmissra once and for all. The Sharkies say, what's interesting is that so far in this series, part of the justification for demonizing the other countries is that they take after their patron gods, if they are depraved. But Issa seems like a pretty great guy. And then they say later, Barak chooses violence. Bingo! No, Barak. I'm going to solve the problem of Salmissra once and for all. Aunt Pole turned back to the groveling queen. You will live, Salmissra. You'll live for a very long time. Eternally, perhaps. An impossible hope dawned in Salmissra's eyes. Slowly she rose to her feet and looked up at the huge figure rising above. Eternally, Polgara? She asked. But I must change you, Aunt Pole said. The poison you've drunk to keep you young and beautiful is slowly killing you. Even now its traces are beginning to show on your face. The queen's hands flew to her cheeks, and she turned quickly to look into her mirror. You're decaying, Salmissra, Aunt Pole said. Soon you'll be ugly and old. The lust which fills you will burn itself out, and you'll die. Your blood's too warm. That's the whole problem. But how? Salmissra faltered. A little change, Aunt Pole assured her. Just a small one, and you'll live forever. Garion could feel the force of her will gathering itself. I will make you eternal, Salmissra. She raised her hand and spoke a single word. The terrible force of that word shook Garion like a leaf in the wind. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Salmissra stood fixed with her pale nakedness gleaming through her gown. Then the strange mottling grew more pronounced, and her thighs pressed together, tightly together. Her face began to shift, to grow more pointed. Her lips disappeared as her mouth spread, and its corners slid up into a fixed reptilian grin. Garion watched in horror, unable to take his eyes off the queen. Her gown slid away as her shoulders disappeared, and her arms adhered to her sides. Her body began to elongate, and her legs, grown completely together now, began to loop into coils. Her lustrous hair disappeared, and the last vestiges of humanity faded from her face. Her golden crown, however, remained firmly upon her head. Her tongue flickered as she sank down into the mass of her loops and coils. The hood upon her neck spread as she looked with flat, dead eyes at Aunt Pole, who had somehow, during the queen's transformation, resumed her normal size. Ascend your throne, Salmissra, Aunt Pole said. The queen's head remained immobile, but her coils looped and mounted the cushioned divan, and the sound of coil against coil was a dry, dusty rasp. Aunt Pole turned to Sadi the eunuch. Behold, the handmaiden of Issa, the queen of the snake people, whose dominion shall endure until the end of days. For she is immortal now, and will reign in Nyissa forever. Sadi's face was ghastly pale, and his eyes bulged wildly. He swallowed hard and nodded. I'll leave you with your queen, then, she told him. I'd prefer to go peacefully, but one way or another, the boy and I are leaving. I'll send word ahead, Sadi agreed quickly. No one will try to bar your way.
Wise decision,
Barak said dryly. All hail the serpent queen of Nyissa, one of the crimson-robed eunuchs pronounced in a shaking voice, sinking to his knees before the dais. Praise her, the others responded ritualistically, also kneeling. Her glory is revealed to us. Worship her. Garion glanced back once as he followed Aunt Pole toward the shattered door. Salmissra lay upon her throne with her mottled coils redundantly piled and her hooded head turned toward the mirror. The golden crown sat atop her head, and her flat, serpent eyes regarded her reflection in the glass. There was no expression on her reptile face, so it was impossible to know what she was thinking. And that brings us to Chapter 30. I'm going to stop there. It's just about 8:40 Pacific time. Well, that was a lot, wasn't it? Let me catch up on what everybody's saying. So let's see. Mini Cake wondering who she thinks she's fooling. Armo says a god apparently, but not very well. Sharky said, sit down and shut up, Salmissra. The grown-ups are talking. Then we got to the part where Moss came back to life. Farmo says, oh, I see. Not just a character flaw thing. She's just got a face-changing lust potion. Sharkies say, oh, that was the bit where the Sharkies were talking about the gods. But Issa seems like a pretty great guy. Salmissra, Farmo says, Salmissra, Issa, destroy my enemy. Issa, wait, what's going on? No. I appreciate that we had, like, clearly boss battle set up. Giant stone statue that towers way up to a distant ceiling so far it's lost in darkness, comes to life, eyes on fire.
Who disturbs my slumber?
And then Aunt Pole's like, I'm going to get up to your height and we're going to talk about this like grown adults. Well, like a grown adult and a god. And they just had a chat, and then the god was like, hang on, let me find out the truth, what's happening here. Has a little chat with, you know, a corpse and things, and then goes, okay, you handle this, I'm going back to sleep. Like, solution through diplomacy. Any GMs out there, any dungeon masters, take note. Starkey is saying, oh, I guess we didn't have to take out the jewel then. Farmo saying Polgara chooses worse than death. Starkey's singing, how do you solve a problem like Salmissra? Sharky's, now she looks 30. And Sharky say, once again, Polgara's justice mean that saving someone is somehow less merciful than death would have been. Well, and that's an interesting thing. Salmissra got turned into a snake, but we did not ever have her, like, scream out in horror. You know, that would be the typical reaction, right? Like, no! Ah! Right? But no, there was none of that. Did you like my transforming into a snake? There was none of that. She just, it happened. She went up to her throne. She still got her crown on her head. And she went back to looking in the mirror. So, things changed, but we don't know. Yeah, like Farmo says, we don't know if she's happy or not. Could be a positive change. Could just be back to normal for all we know. Minicake says my acting needs a Grammy. Farmo says maybe she's like, oh good, now I'm immortal. I got what I wanted. Yeah, maybe. But yes. Oh, there's the pup. Hi, Pop. Oh, look at that waggy tail. Yeah, we finished the chapter. We're almost done this book, Ben. Binnabic is named after a character from a book. From a series of books, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. That's why his full name is Binbinikegabinik. He's named after a Yikanuck troll. Irma says, he's like, are you done yet? I can has cuddles. Soon, Ben. We're almost done. So, yeah. We actually had a god show up in this chapter. That hasn't exactly happened yet. We've heard gods be talked about, but we haven't actually had a full-fledged, here's a god. So that's it's not a small event right there. I don't know if anybody remembers, but in one of the prologues, it was mentioned that the gods all sort of agreed to depart from the world after Torak went mad and kind of attacked everybody. Because if they stuck around and went to war with Torak themselves, the whole world might be destroyed. Maycake says the god seemed pretty lazy and oblivious to be a god, in my opinion. He had a reason for it. He has been asleep for aeons, but that was they're not really allowed to be in the world for the safety of the world. Pharma says it means that Salmissra was actually pretty powerful. Well, it means that at least she had the specific ability to summon Issa, right? As Issa's handmaiden, she at least had that power. She may not have been able to do much else. She didn't really seem to understand how Garion was defending himself with magic. But she knew at least a little. Books, Brews and Booze says thank you for the story, and Puppy Sleepy, yeah. Well, yeah, I do this. You said you've been lurking, so you probably know, but I do this every Wednesday and Friday. I won't be here next Friday, a week from today, but I will be here next Wednesday, and we'll be on the final chapter of this book, which is not going to be that much more. We're on page 308 out of 322. And so once we wrap that up, we usually do a vote when we finish a book, and anyone that's around can take a vote on, if I come visit you, we'll get, you know what, I will make sure to follow you so that I can do that. If I can find the right button. That's not it. Can you tell that am I already following you? I may already be, I'm not certain. I don't actually spend a lot of time outside of streaming on Twitch, or maybe I need to do it over here. But yeah, after we finish this chapter, we will take a vote on what to read next. There we go. All right, I have followed you. I'll come and meet Toothless sometime when I see that you're streaming. We'll take a vote on what to read next, and then so everyone gets a vote. We'll talk about if we're going to continue with the next book, because I'll put up a few options. Minicake says I'm not streaming next Friday. No, next Friday I'm going to be out of town for Easter stuff, visiting family and whatnot. So I will be out of town, and that makes streaming difficult. But I will be here next Wednesday. If you can't make it to next Wednesday, feel free to let me know your vote ahead of time. Usually I've got a few options for what to read, because I tend to like to stick to things that I have read myself before, just so I know that it's kind of content appropriate. There was a few questionable stuff in these past couple chapters with the Queen of Nyssa, but nothing got too explicit. But yeah, we'll probably choose between, I'm guessing, the next book in this series, which is Magician's Gambit, or maybe a Terry Pratchett novel, maybe just as a little bit of an excursion from this series. Maybe we'll go on to the next book in the Guard series or something else entirely, or maybe we'll look at a separate book. I don't think I want to start another series. Yeah, maybe Men at Arms, as Parmo says, or Weird Sisters. I don't want to start another like full series that, like I'm gonna keep the next book to something either following a series we've already started or something self-contained, because we've already got kind of a couple series on the go, though the Guard series is pretty episodic anyways. You can read one book without being required to go into the next one. But we'll see. There has been some momentum with the Belgariad here, so maybe people will just want to go straight into Magician's Gambit. But yeah, so like I said, if you can't make it next Wednesday, feel free to let me know ahead of time. Send me a message or whatever, or just say now what your vote is, and I'll try to keep track. But if you can make it next Wednesday, then we'll finish up Queen of Sorcery. That'll be 7 p.m. Pacific time. And then after that, we'll vote on what we should read next. Sound good? Everybody happy? Did everyone have fun? Thank you again for the raid, Books, Brews, and Booze. It's fun to have. I don't know, I haven't really seen much in the way of other book-related streams on Twitch. But I also don't spend that much time on Twitch, so that's not shocking. But it was cool to have the whole raid show up. That's actually awesome. Chip Alex. Only happy. What do you mean, Chip Alex? Only happy. What? Patio Puzzle says thank you. So does Mini Cake. Hey, no problem. It was fun to have everyone here. It's nice to have a more active stream. More people showing up. That's awesome. It was very cool. Chip Alex says, as in, I'm only happy with you, goosh. Oh boy. Mr. Chip Alex. How you doing? We just finished the second last chapter of this book. And so I was just talking about how next Wednesday we're going to vote on what to read next. Have I read Raybearer? No, I haven't heard of Raybearer. Who's the author? Let me look it up. Jordan Ifueko? Am I looking at the right book here? First thing that came up is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. It says, Tarisai has always longed for the warmth of a family. I'm seeing some fantasy type names here. Crown Prince's Council. The Ray, a bond deeper than blood. I'm gonna guess that's probably the one. Cool. I will keep that window open and take a look at it later. Oh, I'm feeling very warm. I'm curious about that name, Jordan Ifueko. It's an interesting name. Well, thank you all for joining me. And sorry you came in right at the end, Alex. But yeah, hopefully I'll see some of you next Wednesday. We'll finish this book, vote on the next one. And until then, I hope everyone has a lovely weekend. Get some relaxing in if you can. Do something fun, maybe. I'm going to be running my D&D game tomorrow. I'm running Curse of Strahd. If you're familiar with it, don't say any spoilers, because at least one of the players is here in the chat. Yeah, so wish me luck with that tomorrow. My players have all reached, the characters have all reached level 3, but they haven't had a chance yet to flex their 3rd level might yet. So I'll let you, I'll probably also talk about D&D a bit next Wednesday. Patio says, have a great night. Oh, there's the puppy again. All right. Have a good night, everyone. See you next week, I hope. Bye.